Sarah stood frozen as muddy water soaked her pregnant belly. Her ex-husband Jake had just humiliated her in public. "Nice fake pregnancy?" he sneered. "Doctor said you're defective. You can't have babies." Jake was wrong. Sarah was carrying twins. Real, healthy twins. What Jake didn't know? Sarah had remarried to Dr. Michael Chen, whose billionaire family controls the $180 million contract keeping Jake's company alive. In 3 days, Jake's world would collapse. Karma was coming, and it brought an audience. The parking lot of Whole Foods in downtown Boston still held puddles from the morning rain. Sarah Mitchell Chen stood at her Honda's trunk, carefully loading grocery bags. At 6 months pregnant with twins, every movement required extra care. Her hand rested on her belly as the babies kicked. After 3 years of being told she would never carry a child, after hearing the word barren used as a weapon against her, she was actually going to be a mother. An engine revved loud and aggressive. Sarah looked up. A black Mercedes SUV approached fast, too fast for a parking lot. She recognized it instantly. The custom plates, the tinted windows, the aggressive driving. Jake, her ex-husband. The man she had not seen in 2 years, not since the divorce that left her with nothing but trauma and a medical diagnosis that called her broken. Sarah stepped back, but she was not fast enough. Jake swerved toward the largest puddle between them. His tires hit the water at full speed. The wave slammed into Sarah's stomach. Cold, filthy water soaked through her coat and dress, the force making her stumble against her car. Muddy water dripped down her legs, across her face. She could taste dirt and oil. The Mercedes stopped 10 feet away. The window rolled down. Jake leaned out, smiling with pure cruelty. "Still playing dress-up, I see." His voice carried across the parking lot. "Pregnancy pillows, Sarah? Really?" "We both know what the doctor said. You cannot have kids." Sarah's hands shook as she wiped mud from her eyes. She wanted to scream, wanted to tell him the truth, wanted to watch his face when he learned who she had become. But she said nothing. Jake's eyes moved to her stomach with disgust. "I actually feel bad for whatever poor idiot you conned into this. Does he know you are barren? Does he know your body kills babies?" The words hit harder than the water. Sarah's mind flashed to the hospital 3 years ago, to their son Ryan's tiny, still body, to calling Jake 17 times while she bled and lost everything, to him arriving 14 hours later, annoyed she had interrupted his golf game. "You will kill this one too," Jake said, his voice vicious. "Just like you killed ours." An elderly woman stopped to watch. A teenage employee stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. Sarah's phone buzzed. Michael, her husband, checking on her like always. Dr. Michael Chen, the man whose family owned 47 hospitals across New England, including control of the $180 million contract that kept Jake's company alive. Jake did not know any of this. Had no idea that in 3 days, at the Chen Medical Annual Symposium, the world would learn exactly who Sarah had married. Had no idea his career, his reputation, his entire life hung by a thread Sarah's new family controlled. He had no idea karma was not just coming, it was already here. Jake laughed, rolled up his window, and drove away. Sarah stood in dirty water. 6 months pregnant with twins he swore could not exist. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. Michael's text, "How are you feeling? Need me to pick anything up on my way home?" Sarah looked at her soaked clothes, her muddy shoes, the scattered bags of baby food and vitamins. She typed, "I am fine, love you." But she was not fine. And in 3 days, Jake would understand exactly what he had done. 5 years ago, Sarah stood in Boston City Hall wearing a simple white dress from Target and thought she was the luckiest woman alive. Jake Mitchell slid a gold ring onto her finger and whispered that she was his forever. She was 24 years old and believed that love was supposed to feel like belonging to someone. She did not know yet that he meant it like ownership. Jake was 29, confident, successful, a pharmaceutical sales executive making 6 figures. Sarah was a registered nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital, pulling night shifts and making $48,000 a year. They were not rich, but they were building something, or so she thought. The first year, Jake bought her things. Designer dresses she never asked for, expensive perfume that made her sneeze, jewelry that felt too heavy. He took her to restaurants where she could not pronounce half the menu items. When she reached for the check, he would pull it away with a smile that seemed loving but felt like correction. "You do not need to worry about money anymore," he told her. "You are my wife now." By month 6, he suggested she quit the hospital. "My wife should not have to work night shifts. It is embarrassing when my colleagues ask where you are, and I have to say you are cleaning up after patients." Sarah quit. She told herself it was temporary, that she would go back once they bought a house, once things settled. They never did. Year 2, the control tightened like a noose. Jake monitored her spending, questioned why she needed $50 for lunch with her mother, made comments about her friends, being low class until she stopped, seeing them all together. When her brother called, Jake would stand nearby, listening, making faces that told her to wrap it up. Sarah stopped calling her brother. Then came the pregnancy. Sarah cried happy tears when she saw the positive test. A baby boy. They would name him Ryan. Jake posted about it on social media like a business achievement. Told his colleagues he was going to be a father. Bought cigars to hand out at meetings. But when Sarah got morning sickness, when she was too tired to attend his work events, when she needed him home instead of out with clients, Jake grew cold. "You need to push through it," he said. "I have a career to build." At 4 months pregnant, Sarah begged Jake for the 3rd time that week to move his golf clubs from the stairs. The bag was huge, expensive, always in the way. She had nearly tripped twice. "I will move it later," Jake said, rushing out the door to meet clients at the country club. He did not move it. That afternoon, Sarah's foot caught on the strap. She remembered the feeling of falling, the sharp corner of each stair hitting her back, the way her hands instinctively covered her stomach, trying to protect the baby even as she could not protect herself. She remembered lying at the bottom of the stairs, feeling wetness between her legs, knowing something was terribly wrong. She called Jake 17 times. He was on the golf course. He did not answer. A neighbor heard Sarah screaming and drove her to the hospital. The doctors tried everything, but baby Ryan was gone. 4 months old, perfectly formed, silent. Jake arrived 14 hours later. He still wore his golf clothes. He smelled like cigars and beer. He stood at the foot of the hospital bed, uncomfortable, checking his phone while Sarah held the ultrasound photo of their dead son. "These things happen," Jake said, like he was discussing a canceled meeting. "We are young. We can try again." Sarah looked at him and felt something inside her die that was not the baby. The next day, the doctor delivered worse news. The fall had caused severe internal damage, scarring, trauma, her. Chances of ever carrying another pregnancy were less than 10%. When Sarah told Jake, his response was 5 words that would haunt her forever. "So you are basically defective." Not sorry, not devastated, not even angry, just defective. Like she was a broken appliance he could not return. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and grief. Sarah sat in the narrow bed, her body aching, her arms empty. The ultrasound photo lay beside her. Ryan Thomas Mitchell, 4 months gone. 12 hours alone. Then Jake finally walked in. He still wore his golf polo and khakis. His face was flushed from drinks, not from rushing. Sarah could smell the whiskey from across the room. "Sorry, the golf thing ran late." Traffic was terrible. Sarah stared at him. She had called 17 times, texted that she was losing their baby, and he had finished his golf game. "Did you see him? They can bring him back if you want to hold him." Jake's face twisted with discomfort. "Sarah, that is not going to help anything. What is done is done." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages while Sarah sat bleeding and broken, wondering if her husband had ever actually loved her. Jake left an hour later. Something at the office. Sarah spent the night alone, crying, mourning a son her husband could not be bothered to hold even once. The next morning, Dr. Patricia Santos came in with devastating news. "Mrs. Mitchell, the trauma caused significant uterine damage, severe scarring. I am very sorry, but your chances of carrying another pregnancy to term are extremely low, around 10%. 10%. Sarah was 26 years old, and a doctor was telling her she was broken. That evening, she called Jake. The doctor said the fall damaged everything. "I probably cannot have more kids. Only a 10% chance." Silence stretched so long, Sarah thought the call had dropped. Then Jake spoke, his words like ice. "So you are basically defective now." Not sorry. Not "we will figure this out." Just defective. Like she was a broken appliance that had lost its value. 2 months later, Sarah found hotel receipts, text messages to Vanessa, Instagram photos with a blonde woman. When she confronted him, Jake did not lie. What did you expect? I am 31. I need a family, an heir. You cannot give me that. He said it like it was her fault. Like she had chosen to fall downstairs he left cluttered with his golf clubs. I lost our baby because you left your clubs on the stairs after. I begged you to move them. Jake's face hardened. Do not blame me for your clumsiness. You fell. That is on you. Within a week, Jake moved in with Vanessa Sterling, his boss's daughter. A woman with a working uterus and useful family connections. He filed for divorce 3 weeks later, telling everyone Sarah was unstable, obsessed, mentally unwell. He destroyed her reputation as thoroughly as he had destroyed her body, and Sarah, broken and alone, believed every word. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. Sarah sat at the kitchen table and read words that made her sick. Petitioner alleges respondent engaged in extramarital affair. Petitioner alleges respondent suffers from mental instability and delusional behavior. Petitioner requests minimal asset distribution due to infidelity and emotional abuse. Jake was claiming she had cheated, that she was crazy, that she had abused him. None of it was true. But Jake had expensive lawyers, the kind who wore $1,000 suits and destroyed people professionally. Sarah called 5 attorneys. Only one took her case, Maria Torres, a public defender handling 17 cases at once. The hearings were brutal. Jake's lawyer painted Sarah as unstable and obsessed with pregnancy, twisted her grief over Ryan into mental illness, presented her doctor visits as evidence of delusion. Mrs. Mitchell became fixated on pregnancy to an unhealthy degree. She accused my client of causing her miscarriage. She harassed him constantly. She became emotionally abusive. Sarah sat frozen, watching her reality get rewritten. Jake's friends testified against her, his colleagues. Even his mother called her troubled and needy. Sarah had no one. Her friends had vanished during the marriage. Her family could not afford time off work. Maria Torres tried, but could not compete with Jake's legal machine. The settlement was devastating. Sarah got $15,000 and her Honda. Jake kept everything else. The condo, the savings, the investments, everything they had built. Sarah signed because she had no fight left. 18 months ago, she moved back with her mother in Dorchester, a tiny 2-bedroom apartment Jake would have called low class. She tried nursing work, but her hands shook in hospitals. The trauma was too raw. She ended up at Target, folding clothes, scanning items, $13 an hour, barely enough for rent. At night, Sarah researched ways to stop existing. The Harbor Bridge, pills, her mother's car in a closed garage. She made plans she almost followed through on. Then her mother found her at 3 in the morning on the bathroom floor, sleeping pills in hand. You are going to therapy, and you are going to live. He does not get to kill you, too. So Sarah went to therapy, took medication, showed up for shifts even when breathing felt impossible. She stopped checking social media where Jake smiled with Vanessa, living the life he stole from her. She stopped believing she could be anything but broken. Then, 16 months ago, her therapist said something that changed everything. What if you went back to nursing? What if you faced what scares you most? Sarah thought it was a terrible idea, but she was tired of being afraid. So she applied to Massachusetts General Hospital, and that decision would change everything. Sarah's first day back at Massachusetts General Hospital felt like walking through smoke. Every hallway smelled like the place where she had last held Ryan. Every monitor's beep echoed like the flatline she could never forget. They assigned her to the maternal fetal medicine unit, the one place she had promised herself she would avoid. A cruel joke for a woman told she would never carry a child. But she needed this job. Needed to prove to herself that Jake hadn't destroyed everything. 2 weeks in, Sarah met Jennifer Reyes, 28 years old, 5 months pregnant until yesterday. Now her arms were empty, just like Sarah's had been 3 years ago. Jennifer sobbed into her pillow, shaking uncontrollably, while her husband sat helpless in the corner. Other nurses came and went quickly, professional, efficient, detached. That was how they survived. But Sarah couldn't detach. She sat on the edge of Jennifer's bed and held her hand. "I know this doesn't help now," Sarah whispered. "But you're not alone. I lost my son at 4 months. His name was Ryan." Jennifer lifted her tear-streaked face. "Does it get better?" Sarah hesitated. "It gets different. You learn to carry it." What she didn't know was that someone was listening. Dr. Michael Chen, chief of maternal fetal medicine, stood just outside the door. Tall, sharp-featured, graying at the temples, with the confident presence of a man everyone respected. He stayed there several minutes, listening to the compassion in Sarah's voice. Compassion no medical school could teach. When Sarah stepped out, he was waiting. "Nurse Mitchell," he said calmly. "May I speak with you?" Her stomach dropped. She had shared personal information with a patient. She was sure she was about to be written up, or worse, fired. But instead, Dr. Chen said, "I'm sorry about your son." Then, after a pause, "Would you be comfortable sharing your medical history with me?" "Why?" Sarah asked, confused. "Because I specialize in the cases other doctors give up on. And something about what you said makes me think yours might have been one of those." 3 days later, Sarah sat in his private office while he reviewed her medical records. She felt exposed, like someone had peeled open every wound she'd worked so hard to hide. Dr. Chen studied the scan silently, his expression tightening from neutral to focused to angry. Finally, he turned to her. "The doctors who told you you had only a 10% chance were wrong." Sarah froze. "What?" "You have scarring, yes, but it's operable. The damage is repairable, complex but very possible." His voice softened. "Sarah, I don't think you're infertile. I think you were misdiagnosed." The room spun. Why would they tell me that? Because complicated cases require time, and some doctors don't bother to look deeper. Tears filled her eyes, 3 years of grief rising like a wave. "Can you fix it?" she whispered. "Yes," he said. "I'll perform the surgery myself, no cost." Sarah stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "My younger sister died because doctors didn't take her seriously," he said quietly. "I became a doctor to help the women others give up on." Sarah cried for 20 minutes while Dr. Chen sat silently, letting her believe, maybe for the first time, that she wasn't broken. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later, and it would change everything. The surgery lasted 8 hours and 17 minutes. When Sarah finally woke in recovery, the first face she saw wasn't a nurse or a resident, but Dr. Michael Chen himself. The chief of maternal-fetal medicine sat beside her at 2 in the morning, exhaustion softening his usually disciplined expression. "The surgery went perfectly," he said quietly. "You're going to be fine." Across the next 6 weeks, Michael visited her every single day. At first, it was professional, checking her incision, adjusting medication, monitoring progress. But slowly, the conversations changed. They talked about books, about music, about the tragedies that shaped them. They laughed over terrible hospital coffee. Something gentle and unexpected grew in those small moments. Sarah learned that Michael's mother died of cancer when he was 16. That his father, Dr. James Chen, built a medical empire while raising him alone. That Michael's devotion to saving women wasn't ambition, it was grief turned into purpose. 3 months after the surgery, he asked her to dinner. A real dinner. "I know this breaks protocol," he admitted, looking nervous for the first time since she'd met him. "But I haven't stopped thinking about you. And I need to know if you feel this too." Sarah did. Terrified, but yes. They began dating quietly, protecting something fragile and new. When Michael introduced her to his father, Dr. Chen Sr. held her hands and said, "My son has never looked at anyone the way he looks at you." 10 months ago, Michael proposed in the hospital rooftop garden where they'd once shared a quiet cup of coffee. "I don't care if you ever have children," he told her. "I want you. Not your fertility. You. The woman who survived hell and stayed soft." Sarah said yes through tears she didn't know she still had left. They married 3 weeks later at Boston City. Hall, small, simple, nothing. Like her first wedding, this time she felt chosen, not used. The Chen family valued privacy and big announcements, so only immediate family knew. No social media, no grand reveal, just peace. 7 months ago, Sarah's period was late. She took 5 tests, all positive. At the hospital, shaking, she performed her own ultrasound during lunch break. 2 heartbeats, twins. In the dark room, she sobbed until another nurse rushed in, thinking something was wrong. That night, when she told Michael, he cried too. They held each other in their kitchen as if the universe had finally apologized. The doctors had once said 10%. Jake had said never. Her body had betrayed her before. But here they were, 2 lives growing inside her. Dr. James Chen had a family tradition. All major Chen family announcements were revealed at the annual Chen Medical Symposium. Weddings, retirements, expansions, everything happened there. This year, he would announce his first grandchildren, twin boys. The event was 3 weeks away, with 3,000 attendees from every major medical institution in New England. Sarah agreed to keep the pregnancy secret until then. It felt safer, special, hers. She stopped working at 5 months. Twins, high risk, a painful medical history. Michael refused to take chances. Her days became quiet and beautiful, setting up a nursery, reading parenting books, feeling her sons kick and roll inside her. Jake Mitchell stood in the executive conference room of Med Supply Solutions, trying not to sweat through his tailored shirt as he adjusted his tie. Behind him, the presentation screen glowed with numbers: revenue growth, client retention, market expansion. Impressive, polished, meaningless. Because everyone in that room knew the truth. One client mattered more than all the others combined. Chen Medical Group. Their contract alone was worth $180 million a year, 60% of Med Supply's total revenue. Jake had managed that account for 2 years, and it had launched him into the VP of Sales role. It was the reason he had status, security, and Vanessa. At the head of the table sat Robert Sterling, CEO and Jake's father-in-law. The man Jake needed to impress every single day to protect both his marriage and his job. Chen Medical sent a notice this morning, Robert said, sliding a paper across the table. They're reviewing all vendor partnerships. Jake's throat tightened. Our metrics are excellent. We've exceeded every benchmark. I'm aware, Robert said sharply. But Chen Medical doesn't just evaluate performance. They evaluate ethics, integrity. Any scandal, any personal issue, and they'll drop us without hesitation. His gaze hardened. The annual symposium is in 1 week. You will attend? Mandatory? Jake nodded. 3,000 attendees. Boston Convention Center. Black tie. The biggest networking event of the year, and the place where reputations were built or destroyed. Robert added, make a good impression. Remind them why we're indispensable. What he didn't say, what didn't need saying, hung in the air. If this contract goes, so do 200 jobs, and Jake's entire life collapses. Leaving the office, Jake felt the pressure clamp around his ribs. Vanessa had been cold for weeks, comparing him to her father, reminding him that everything he had, condo, car, image, existed because of her family. If he failed, he lost far more than a job. 3 days before the symposium, Jake stopped at Whole Foods to buy expensive scotch. Anything to dull the anxiety. Walking back to his car, he saw a woman across the lot. Pregnant, very pregnant, loading groceries into an old Honda. Jake froze. His ex-wife, the woman he hadn't seen in almost 2 years. The woman he had divorced, blamed, and abandoned. And she was pregnant. Jake's mind sputtered. Doctors had said she had only a 10% chance. He had told everyone she was barren, defective. But there she was, clearly 6 or 7 months along. Rage flooded him. Because if she was pregnant, then the problem had never been her. It meant the lies he told were exposed. It meant he was the one who had failed. Acting without thinking, Jake slid into his Mercedes. He spotted a wide, muddy puddle between them. He hit the accelerator. The water erupted over Sarah. She gasped, drenched and stunned. Jake rolled down his window. Pregnancy pillows, Sarah? Really? We both know you can't. Her hurt expression only fueled his sick sense of triumph. He drove off laughing. That night, while Vanessa ignored him, Jake posted a photo of wine and dinner on Instagram. Saw someone still pretending pregnancy pillows are babies. Some people never learn. He didn't name her, but everyone who knew the divorce knew exactly who he meant. Jake felt powerful. He didn't know he had just ended his own life. Because the woman he humiliated wasn't just an ex-wife. She was Sarah Chen, wife of Dr. Michael Chen, daughter-in-law of Dr. James Chen, who controlled every major medical contract in New England, including the $180 million lifeline keeping Jake's world intact. In 3 days, Jake would walk into the symposium smiling. He had no idea he was walking into his own execution. The Boston Convention Center shimmered under crystal chandeliers, suspended from towering ceilings. The ballroom glowing like a palace built for power. White linen tables stretched across the vast hall, seating more than 3,000 of the most influential figures in New England's medical world. Doctors, CEOs, researchers, and industry. Giants, everyone who mattered, had arrived for the Chen Medical Annual Symposium. Jake Mitchell straightened his bow tie for the 5th time. pretending confidence he didn't feel. He and the other vendors sat in Section 3B, positioned perfectly in front of the main stage. Beside him, Vanessa scrolled through her phone, barely glancing his way. Her indifference only tightened the anxiety already clawing at his ribs. This night mattered. The entire future of Med Supply's $180 million contract depended on impressions made in rooms like this. Jake had already worked the cocktail hour, shaking hands, offering hollow compliments, laughing at jokes he didn't understand. This was the performance his career demanded. The lights dimmed. The crowd stilled. An awards segment began. Innovation prizes, research breakthroughs, speeches about the future of healthcare. Jake clapped mechanically, checked his phone when he thought no one noticed, and tried to remind himself that he belonged here, that he wasn't one slip away from losing everything. At 8:45 p.m., the master of ceremonies stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and chairman of Chen Medical Group, Dr. James Chen. Thunderous applause followed. Jake sat upright instantly. Dr. Chen rarely spoke at length, and any announcement he made tonight could shape the industry and Jake's livelihood. Dr. Chen walked onto the stage with effortless command. Elegant, silver-haired, and dignified, he looked like the embodiment of a self-made empire. "Good evening," he began warmly. "Tonight, I want to set business aside and share something personal." Jake leaned forward. Personal announcements from Dr. Chen typically meant leadership changes or decisions that would affect vendors like him. Jake's heart thudded. Dr. Chen spoke about arriving in America with $200, working 3 jobs through medical school, opening his first clinic in a forgotten neighborhood. The room listened raptly. Jake pretended to, though his mind was focused on potential contract implications. "But success," Dr. Chen said, voice softening, "means nothing without family." Jake's attention drifted until the next words froze him. "Tonight, I am overjoyed to announce that my son and his wife are expecting our first grandchildren, twin boys, due in 3 months." Applause swept the room. Jake clapped automatically. "And now," Dr. Chen said, gesturing toward the wings, "please welcome my son, Dr. Michael Chen, and his wife, Sarah." Jake didn't process the names at first. The spotlight moved. A tall man in a tuxedo appeared, guiding a woman beside him. Then the woman stepped forward. An emerald green maternity gown, 6-month belly, elegant hair, a soft, radiant glow. The giant screen zoomed in on her face. Jake's glass froze halfway to his mouth. Sarah, his ex-wife, the woman he had drenched with muddy water 3 days ago, the woman he had mocked online, the woman he had labeled barren and broken, standing on stage, pregnant, glowing, introduced as Sarah Chen. Jake's blood ran cold. Sarah wasn't just remarried, she had married into the Chen family. The same family controlling the contract that held Jake's entire career upright. Vanessa glanced at him. "Jake, you look pale. What's wrong?" Jake couldn't answer. All he could see was Sarah's face on the giant screens. All he could hear were his own cruel words echoing back at him. And all he could think was, "What have I done?" Dr. James Chen's voice filled the ballroom, proud and unwavering. "Sarah has overcome tremendous medical challenges to achieve this miracle pregnancy. Many specialists told her she would never carry a child to term, that her body was too damaged, that she should give up hope." Jake's hands shook. He knew exactly what medical trauma Dr. Chen meant. The fall, the miscarriage, the diagnosis he had weaponized for years. "But my son saw what others missed," Dr. Chen continued, his arm around Sarah. "After complex surgery and expert care, Sarah is now 26 weeks pregnant with healthy twin boys." Ultrasound images appeared on the giant screens. 2 distinct babies, profiles clear, movements captured in real time. Dates stamped in the corner 3 days ago. The day after Jake had drenched her in muddy water and mocked her online. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. This was official. Massachusetts General Hospital logos. Not fake, not pillows. Not delusion, real. Phones began to appear. Whispered questions spread like wildfire. Jake's Instagram post, the one mocking Sarah, was circulating. Colleagues leaned over, eyes wide. "That's the woman he posted about?" murmured someone nearby. Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Jake, tell me that isn't her. Tell me you did not post about Dr. Chen's wife." Jake couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. On stage, Dr. Michael Chen took the microphone. Calm, professional, with an edge that made Jake's stomach drop. "I want to honor my wife tonight," he said, gazing at Sarah. "She is a nurse at Mass General, dedicating her life to caring for others even after devastating loss. She is the strongest person I know." The audience erupted in applause. Sarah wiped tears, smiling through them. Michael's eyes swept the room, and for one agonizing second, Jake felt them on him. Some see only loss. They judge, mock, assume brokenness. But Sarah proved every doubter wrong. "I am honored to build a family with her." The applause was deafening. Jake felt a hand on his shoulder, heavy, furious. Robert Sterling, his boss, Vanessa's father, hissed, "Conference room now!" Jake followed on shaking legs. In the hallway, Robert spun, face red. "Tell me that isn't your ex-wife. Tell me you did not mock the wife of Dr. Michael Chen, daughter-in-law of the man who controls our biggest contract." Jake's silence spoke volumes. Robert's phone flashed the post. Screenshots, already shared across industry group chats. "You are suspended effective immediately," Robert said. "Do not come to the office. Do not contact clients. HR will be in touch." Vanessa's voice cut like ice. "You told me she was crazy, couldn't have kids, that you were the victim." "She was barren," Jake stammered. "Doctor said 10%, I didn't know." "You didn't know she'd marry someone important?" "Pathetic," Vanessa spat, walking away, heels clicking. Jake stood alone. His phone buzzed. Texts, emails, screenshots of his own post. Then an email from Chen Medical Corporate Relations arrived. Subject, Vendor Partnership Review. He didn't need to open it. He was finished. 72 hours after the symposium, Jake Mitchell's life unraveled completely. Day 1, MedSupply Solutions fired him for cause. No severance, no references. The official statement cited conduct, detrimental to company interests and undisclosed conflicts, jeopardizing client relationships. Day 2, Chen Medical Group canceled their $180 million contract. The press release was precise, merciless. Chen Medical Group is committed to partnerships that reflect respect and integrity. We do not tolerate behavior that demeans women or those overcoming medical challenges. MedSupply's stock plummeted 42% in 6 hours. 200 employees lost their jobs. Jake's phone flooded with angry, threatening messages from former colleagues. Day 3, Vanessa filed for separation, reclaiming everything that mattered: the condo, the car, the lifestyle. Jake had 48 hours to pack and leave. He landed in a studio apartment in Revere, furnished with rented furniture, facing a future that felt like a black hole. But his downfall had only begun. 3 weeks later, Sarah Chen's legal team served him with a lawsuit, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and malicious destruction of reputation. Evidence was meticulous and brutal. Texts bragging about fabricating lies, phone records proving his affair with Vanessa during Sarah's pregnancy, neighbor testimony of him ignoring her urgent calls, medical records linking her fall to his negligence, and the Instagram post that had gone viral in industry circles. His public defender gave him one sober truth: you have no defense. Settle, or they will destroy you in court. Beam in? Settlement terms were humiliating. $500,000 to pay in installments, a public apology admitting every lie, and a permanent restraining order. Jake signed. He had no choice. 6 months later, Sarah gave birth to twin boys, Ryan James Chen, named for the son she had lost, and Lucas Michael Chen, named for the man who believed in her when she couldn't. The Boston Globe featured the announcement, Sarah glowing, Michael beside her, Dr. James Chen beaming. Jake saw it while stocking shelves at CVS, earning $16 an hour. One afternoon at Whole Foods, the same place where everything began, he froze. Sarah appeared, pushing a double stroller with both babies asleep. Jeans and a sweater, radiant, serene. Their eyes met. Jake stepped forward, searching for words, apologies, any relief for the guilt gnawing at him. "Don't," Sarah said simply. He nodded, turned away, loaded groceries into his beat-up Honda, watching Michael take the stroller and kiss Sarah's forehead. A family. Whole. Happy. Everything he'd said she could never have. That evening, alone in his apartment, Jake understood. Cruelty always returns. Maybe not immediately, but with interest, witnessed by everyone. He had called Sarah broken, defective, Worthless. The only thing broken in their story had been him. Sarah survived his worst and built beauty. Jake did not survive himself. And that, more than any revenge, was justice. Karma did not chase Jake Mitchell. It waited, and it made sure the world was watching when he destroyed himself.